I've been blindsided by my boyfriend's breakup for the most absurd reason, after years of me carrying him financially, only for him to overlook that the house is solely in my name. Now he's crashing in his car. Let me give you the full picture. I was with Lucas for 6 years. 6 years of what I thought was devotion, commitment, and an abundance of endurance. When I say endurance, I mean I was the one footing the bills while he chased one wild idea after another. There was his podcast that never gained traction, despite his claims it had outshined viral trends. Then came his obsession with blockchain startups. Spoiler alert, he was way off the mark, and his brief dive into Forex trading where he squandered most of his funds. Through it all, I kept us afloat. The mortgage? Me. Electricity and water? Me. Groceries? You got it, me again. Car loans? Yup, still me. Lucas was the visionary, and I suppose I was the naive one who kept buying into his visions. Each time he'd pitch a new scheme, his face lit up with excitement. I'd swallow my skepticism and back him up. This one's the game changer, he'd promise. And like a fool, I trusted him. Things took a strange turn about 2 weeks ago. Lucas started acting aloof, glued to his phone more than usual, dropping odd remarks about needing room to evolve and discover himself. I brushed it off at first. He often got introspective before launching another venture. But then he began nitpicking the state of the house, which was out of character. He'd point out unwashed plates or unsorted laundry with this unfamiliar, critical edge. Then, last week, he sat me down at our dining table after I got home from work. His expression was grave, one I'd only seen a handful of times, usually when he was about to admit another flop. But what he said next made me feel like I'd stepped into an alternate reality. "We need to part ways," he declared. "You don't pull your weight around here." I actually chuckled, thinking it was a prank. But his face stayed stone cold, and something in me just clicked. This man, who I'd practically been bankrolling for 6 years, was accusing me of not doing enough. When I pressed him to explain, he doubled down. "You're always leaving messes, and I'm stuck carrying the emotional load, pointing out what needs doing. Let me set the scene. I work grueling hours to keep us solvent while he's at home, plotting his next big break. Sure, sometimes I'm too exhausted to wash dishes right away or fold clothes instantly. I might leave a coffee cup on the counter or forget to stash my sneakers. But you know what I also do? Pay every bill that keeps a roof over our heads and food on our table." Meanwhile, Lucas's grandest contribution was rearranging the TV stand by aesthetic twice and tossing out my perfectly fine storage containers because they didn't inspire him. This is the same guy who loses it if the internet drops for 10 minutes. Guess who deals with the service provider every time? Me. Every anniversary, holiday, or date night, organized by me. He can't even order food delivery without triple-checking my preferences and still messing it up. But here's where it gets truly wild. After dropping his breakup bombshell, Lucas acted like the house was his domain. He made this cocky remark about how this would be a fresh start for us both and suggested I could crash at my dad's place or something. He even started planning to turn the spare room into his studio once I was out and mused about getting a cat since no one would nag about the fur anymore. That's when it dawned on me. He genuinely seemed to believe, or maybe never registered, whose name is on the house deed. Spoiler, it's not his, not even remotely. This house came from my grandparents' estate, and I'm the only owner. Every mortgage payment, every repair, every utility bill, it's all mine. I excused myself, went to the bedroom, and locked the door. I wasn't going to beg or try to sway him. No, I'd let him bask in his fantasy for as long as he pleased. Let him think he's coming out on top in this breakup. Let him believe I'm packing up and leaving. Because here's the truth. Lucas has no idea what's coming. He's clueless about how much he's about to lose. And honestly, I'm almost excited to see him realize just how royally he messed up. First update. So as I mentioned, my now ex-boyfriend Lucas broke up with me out of the blue, claiming I wasn't doing enough around the house. This was laughable since I've been covering every expense, mortgage, utilities, groceries, while he's been finding himself for years. Oh, and don't forget I also handled cooking, cleaning, and every chore that didn't involve his precious streaming setup. But here's the real twist. Post-breakup, Lucas acted like he owned the place. Seriously. So, as I mentioned, my now ex-boyfriend Lucas broke up with me out of the blue, claiming I wasn't doing enough around the house. This was laughable since I've been covering every expense, mortgage, utilities, groceries, while he's been finding himself for years. Oh, and don't forget, I also handled cooking, cleaning, and every chore that didn't involve his precious streaming setup. But here's the real twist. Post-breakup, Lucas acted like he owned the place. Seriously. Within days, he was strutting around like he'd built the house himself. He started leaving dishes everywhere, blasting music until 3 a.m., acting like nothing had changed. He even told me I should start packing to make things smooth. Meanwhile, I was just stunned, waiting to see how deep this delusion ran. Spoiler, it ran deep. About a week after the split, Lucas announced he was having a guest over. This came during one of his moments where he barely acknowledged me, muttering about needing me to respect his boundaries. Respect his boundaries? In my house? Sure, pal. I nodded, curious to see who this guest was. When the doorbell rang, I opened it to find a woman, Sophie, standing there with a warm smile and a bottle of sparkling water. She was perfectly friendly, but it didn't take a genius to see she wasn't just a friend. The way she looked at Lucas? Yeah, they were definitely an item. Lucas didn't even bother with proper introductions. He just glided past me like I was the help, giving Sophie a tour of my house. And oh, did he sell it like he was a property tycoon? This is the lounge. I'm thinking of upgrading the sofa. Something sleeker. Here's the kitchen. Love the open vibe, perfect for parties. This is my workspace, where I do most of my projects. I nearly snorted at that one. Projects? The guy hasn't worked since 2019. The workspace, he mentioned. The guest room I set up for him to maybe do some side gigs, but it's mostly where he plays Call of Duty. Sophie was lapping it up, though, clearly picturing herself living here in some Instagram-worthy dream. Meanwhile, I stood in the kitchen clutching my mug so tightly I thought it might shatter. I had two choices: lose it and tell them both off, or stay calm and let Lucas dig his own grave. I picked the latter. I wanted to see how far he'd push this farce. All evening, he acted like he'd already moved on and was just kindly letting me linger until I sorted things out. He even pulled me aside to say, "We should probably set a timeline for when you'll move out. No pressure, but Sophie and I need to plan." Plan what? A barbecue in my backyard? I just smiled and said, "Don't worry, I've got it under control." His smug grin was priceless. He really thought he'd won. The next morning, I made my move. While Lucas was still passed out, I called a locksmith and had every lock changed. The job was done in under an hour. I paid, thanked the locksmith, and sat down with a cup of coffee to wait. When Lucas finally shuffled into the kitchen, acting like the lord of the manor, I casually dropped, "Oh, by the way, I changed the locks today. You'll need to grab your stuff and be out by tonight." You guys. The sheer panic on his face. He went ghostly white. "What do you mean you changed the locks? You can't do that." "Oh, I absolutely could. This is my house, Lucas. My name's on the deed, not yours. You're no longer welcome here." He tried arguing, then pleading, even pulling the "I thought we were building a life together" card. Sophie showed up during this, probably expecting another cozy night. Instead, she got to watch Lucas pack his bags while I stood there, arms folded, reminding him not to forget his gaming console. She looked baffled, asking, "Wait, this isn't your house?" Lucas didn't even respond. By nightfall, both were gone. I poured myself a drink, sank into the sofa Lucas wanted to replace, and reflected on how close I'd come to losing it all because I was too generous with my time, money, and trust. Never again. Oh, and word on the street? Lucas is now crashing on friends' couches. A mutual friend said Sophie dumped him once she realized he was jobless, broke, and essentially homeless. Karma's a beautiful thing, isn't it? Thought that was the end. But Lucas wasn't done making a fool of himself. A few days later, our mutual friend Ethan called to check in. I could tell he was holding something back, so I pressed him. "Did Lucas put you up to this?" Ethan hesitated, but eventually spilled. Apparently, Lucas had been plotting this breakup for months, telling everyone, friends, family, even random acquaintances, that he was about to take over the house and start fresh. He painted himself as the patient boyfriend who'd endured my constant complaints for years. According to him, the house was practically his because of all the effort he'd put into making it ours. I had to stop Ethan there because I nearly choked laughing. Effort? The guy barely vacuumed, let alone maintained the house. I asked Ethan if Lucas ever mentioned that the house is in my name. He said you'd probably just leave if he asked, and if not, he'd figure it out. Oh, Lucas. Delusional Lucas. Apparently, he was so sure I'd cave and hand over the house that he threw himself a mental victory party pre-breakup. He told people he was finally free to chase his dreams and even planned a move-in bash. In my house. The nerve. Ethan also dropped a bombshell that really got under my skin. Lucas had been downplaying everything I did for him, telling people I was barely scraping by with the bills and that he was the one keeping things together. This from the guy who didn't even know the cost of our internet bill. The lies were so bold I couldn't help but laugh. I thanked Ethan for the heads up and started planning how to wrap this up in a way Lucas would never forget. At first, I considered letting it go. Lucas was out, the house was mine, and I could move forward. But then I thought about all the nonsense he put me through, years of emotional games, financial freeloading, and now this absurd smear campaign. No way was I letting it slide. I decided to hit Lucas where it hurt, his pride. First, I sent a calm but clear group text to our mutual friends, Setting the record straight. The house is 100% mine. Lucas never paid a cent toward the mortgage or utilities. Any claims he built our life were straight-up lies. I kept it factual, attaching screenshots of lease agreements and bills in my name, plus a photo of the deed. My name only. I wasn't letting him rewrite history. Second, I contacted a local charity that furnishes homes for those in need. I donated all of Lucas's leftover stuff, his old chair, a lamp he never used, even the gaming console he forgot in his haste. They were thrilled, and I was glad to see it go. Finally, I reached out to Lucas's parents, who'd always been kind to me. I felt they deserved the truth. I didn't spill every detail, but shared enough to debunk his victim story. The group text exploded. Most friends were shocked but supportive, stunned Lucas had spun such a wild tale. A few of his buddies tried defending him, saying he was going through stuff, but I shut that down. We all have struggles, I said, but that doesn't justify lying or mooching. Lucas caught wind of the message and called me, livid, accusing me of destroying his life and airing our private business. I calmly pointed out he'd been doing that for months. I just set the record straight. Then I hung up and blocked him. His parents? Mortified. They apologized profusely, saying they hadn't realized how badly Lucas treated me. His dad even offered to cover some of the bills he'd racked up, but I declined. I didn't want money. I wanted them to know the truth. The cherry on top came weeks later when I ran into Sophie at a cafe. She approached, visibly embarrassed, and apologized for getting involved. She said Lucas lied to her about everything, including the house being a mutual agreement. Then she dropped the best part. Lucas was living in his car. None of his friends would take him in after the truth came out, and his parents weren't bailing him out either. He'd burned every bridge, and now he was paying the price. I don't wish hardship on anyone, but in this case, I can't say I'm too torn up. He made his choices, and now he's sleeping in his back seat. Thought that was the end of the saga, but Lucas wasn't done making a mess. Last week, I was having lunch with my sister Mia when she started acting off, checking her phone, giving me weird glances like she was hiding something. Finally, I asked what was going on. "Don't be upset," she began, which is never a good opener. "But Lucas contacted me last week." I nearly choked on my water. "What?" "Turns out Lucas has been telling everyone who will listen that we had some verbal contract about the house. According to him, we were basically engaged, we weren't, and he'd invested heavily in our home. He hadn't. But here's the kicker. He asked Mia for money, a chunk of cash to get back on his feet and claim what's his, and she gave it to him. Before you grab torches, hear me out. Mia and I are tight, and she's usually sharp as a tack. But Lucas fed her a sob story about how he'd poured everything into our relationship and was now homeless because of me. He even showed her receipts for some utilities he'd paid years ago, conveniently omitting that he used my money. I felt sorry for him, Mia admitted, looking ashamed. He was sleeping in his car and seemed so convinced. I asked how much she gave him. $1,500, she muttered. $1,500. I was fuming. But then Mia showed me their texts, and I realized she's savvier than I thought. She didn't just hand over the cash, she made him sign a formal IOU with repayment terms and interest, using his car as collateral. When I asked why she went to such lengths for a small loan, she grinned. I knew he was lying. I wanted proof of how desperate he was. Plus, a document showing he's borrowing might be useful later. I could have kissed her, but it gets better. Ethan, our friend who spilled about Lucas's pre-breakup schemes, sent me screenshots of Lucas's social media rants. He's been portraying himself as a victim of a scheming ex who trapped him in a relationship to steal his future wealth. Yes, he thinks I supported his jobless self for 6 years to cash in on his non-existent earnings from failed ventures. His posts are full of vague claims about me manipulating him and exploiting his kind heart. According to him, he was the one emotionally supporting me while I was unstable and incapable of healthy relationships. This from the guy who once threw a fit because I got him the wrong flavor of soda. But here's the twist. My friend Ava's been tracking everyone Lucas has contacted. He's spinning different tales to different people. To some, he's the victim of a cruel ex. To others, he's the generous partner who sacrificed everything for me. To a few, he's claiming we had a business deal that I sabotaged. The stories keep getting wilder. Last week, he told someone I promised to add him to the deed for his birthday, but backed out of spite. Creative, considering he once forgot my birthday because he was too busy trying to go viral on TikTok. Yesterday, I got a string of frantic messages from him threatening to expose me to everyone we know. He claims he has dirt on me, though I'm curious what he thinks that is, given I know about his failed stock trades and that time he tried to start a pet influencer account with my phone. I haven't replied, but saved every message. Something tells me this isn't over. Lucas has never been great at facing reality. And now that he's burned through Mia's money, probably on another doomed scheme, he's likely plotting his next move to get what he thinks he's owed. So, last Saturday, I was at the supermarket when I bumped into Lucas's mom. I tried to just nod and move on, but she stopped my cart and said, "We need to talk." She's always been kind to me, even post-drama, but this time she looked off, concerned, but also frustrated. She asked if we could grab a coffee, and something in her tone made me say yes. Over coffee, she took a deep breath and said, "I need to tell you what Lucas has been up to. It's gone too far." Apparently, Lucas showed up at their house last week with a wild story about how he was reclaiming the house. He claimed he had proof I'd tricked him into putting all the bills in my name, and even said he'd given me cash for the down payment. His mom shut him down, reminding him she and his dad were there when I inherited the house before Lucas even moved in. But he just steamrolled her, ranting about how he was building a case and needed money to fix things. When his parents refused to fund him, he lost it, accusing them of never backing his dreams and siding with me over their son. His mom looked exhausted as she recounted this. "He's not the boy I raised," she said. "I don't know what happened to him." Then she dropped some bombshells I hadn't known, like how Lucas told his younger sister he'd bought me out of the house months ago. His mom showed me screenshots of a crowdfunding page he'd made, titled, "Help a Local Man Take Back His Home from Deceitful Ex." I nearly spat out my coffee. The page was packed with fabricated tales about how he'd poured his savings into the house, what savings, and how I'd manipulated the paperwork to cut him out. He even posted photos of my house, claiming he'd done all these upgrades himself. The only upgrade Lucas ever did was moving the coffee table when he was avoiding job searches. Crazily, people were donating. Not much, but enough for Lucas to think his plan was working. He'd raised about $600 before his mom reported the page and got it shut down. "I had to act," she said. "He needs to face the truth." She revealed Lucas had been sleeping in his car in their driveway for a week, refusing to come inside unless they supported his fight. Every morning, he'd leave claiming he had meetings about the house. Every night, he'd return with new tales of progress. His mom hit her limit when she overheard him trying to convince Sophie to vouch for him, claiming the house was his. Sophie, to her credit, laughed and hung up. "I'm not telling you this for pity," his mom said. "I'm warning you to be ready. He won't stop until he's forced to." Then she did something unexpected. She handed me a small photo album. Inside were pictures of Lucas from recent years, family gatherings, holidays, random moments. In every one, he was on his phone or laptop, working on his next big idea while everyone else lived their lives. "I should have seen it earlier," she said. "How he used people. How he always had a scheme. I enabled him too long, and I'm sorry you got caught in it." I tried to return the album, but she refused. "Keep it. Maybe one day he'll want to see who he was." She told me she and Lucas's dad had made a decision. They're changing their locks and cutting off his Wi-Fi. No more crashing in their driveway, no more enabling his fantasies. They've arranged for him to stay with his cousin out of state, who's offered him a real job, manual labor, no tech, no scams. He either takes it and gets his act together or figures it out alone. "We're done watching him destroy others' lives because he won't build his own," she said. As we parted, she hugged me and whispered, "Thank you for showing him actions have consequences. I just hope he learns from them." I watched her leave, feeling a strange mix of relief that his family sees him for who he is and sadness for the person he might have been. I wish he'd learned, too.